Hey, everybody.
Hi. It's Emily and Jamie, in case you didn't know.
If there's any confusion, we're in November.
Well, in the spirit of Mackenzie puking at school yesterday and you needing to leave to go get her and drop her off at home.
Correct.
And that we're in November.
Yep.
We just figured we'd talk about how everybody is fucking sick right now.
Everybody. I just had this conversation with my husband last night because this, not to brag. I mean, my kids are never sick. You know this.
Yeah, your kids rarely get
sick.
Like
literally up until the last month, my kids are never sick. Camilla was the sickest child that I had, and she got pneumonia when she was 6 weeks old, and then had some breathing stuff the first year, but nothing crazy. I've been to a sick visit at her pediatrician's office. I don't
ever. Have you ever gone?
Yeah, I think I've gone 3 times. 3.
But it's actually crazy too. Now I'm just thinking,
I also never bring my kids to the pediatrician. Period.
But also haven't traveled far in a long time, and you traveled to London.
Oh yeah.
And Camilla got sick when you were in London.
My kid,
but she never gets sick, and you were in London.
Yeah, I mean, I'm batting 1,000 though with my JC and I going away and one of our kids getting sick.
Right.
That pretty much happens every time. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I'm not bragging because now my kids are sick all the time, but they weren't.
The kid homesick right now.
Yeah, they were. She's not even fucking sick anymore, which is the crazy part. But
she needs a day.
Yeah,
mental health day.
Yeah, but yeah, they weren't sick at all. Now everybody's in school. We're obviously coming out of COVID. Our kids were in school. My kids were in school the last 2 years with masks on. No fucking surprise that this winter is going to be a giant fucking shit show, and it started early. And so I went into the school year knowing that the kid, I actually felt I went into the school year. My expectations were super low, and lo and behold, so I'm 100% know that I am saying this from a place of privilege here, but we have our nanny who is still, even though my youngest is in school 3 days a week, I still have her I'm paying her for full-time hours because for this reason of she's with Camilla on Mondays and Fridays and then picks everybody up from school every day, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday when they're all in school. But yeah, when we have a sick kid, which I have had almost every single week since school started.
I didn't even know because you just keep coming to work.
Yeah.
Because Anne-Marie's there.
I know. But and that is not the scenario for everybody. I'm not saying that in that way. I'm just saying that this is the first year that my kids really have been sick. I sort of knew it going into it.
Right.
And a lot of families are in the same situation. We've gotten so many messages on Instagram and our email and on our message board about my kid is sick again. They can't go to daycare again. They're out of school again. When is it
always something new, right? COVID's still out there, but now we have RSV, flu, neurovirus,
hand, foot, and mouth.
Hand, foot, and mouth running rampant. And then just weird viruses.
Yeah, I mean,
unknown.
Everything's a fuking virus.
Everything's a virus.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just one thing after the next.
Yeah.
And then literally we've never had hand, foot, and mouth in our house. Grace is 7, Maddie is 5, and Eloise is 1. But Grace and Maddie had never had it, and they all got it this year. I was so oh my God! But I really thought we'd never get that one. I was we never had it before, so we'll never get it. Oh my God, it's terrible too. Yeah. I felt so sorry for Eloise. She wanted to eat, but she couldn't. And then when she did swallow baby food packs, or she would cry. It was so sad from the sores in her mouth. Yeah. I mean, it's just one thing to the next.
Right.
I was thinking too, you have your nanny obviously to help you, but even recently I had to take one of the girls to the pediatrician, and she was it Maddie? I really can't remember.
It was Maddie.
I still don't have it.
She was
I believe you.
Yeah. And inconsolable. And you're I can't leave her.
Inconsolable. And I was I can't leave her. Yeah. She's not going to want to stay with our nanny. So I had to stay home to take care of her. But I felt so lucky because the nanny, took care of the baby and still could do school pickup and drop off. Like
Right.
I needed like a little village in that day. That was
That
nice.
And that is like, so there's this element where like, I obviously want to talk about like what is happening with illnesses, and how to manage that. Right. But then this other side of it of like, obviously you and I are talking about it from this place of like being really lucky to have these women and family in our lives who can help us. And not everybody has that. So also like the side of it of like, how do you actually manage your kid being sick all the time and maybe being home from school or daycare?
Right.
If you don't have a nanny, right. And what that actually looks like too. So I feel like there's like two parts of this conversation.
But we have people who work for us here at NAPS who have had just even their nanny is out sick
100%.
or their child can't go to daycare.
Right.
So we work with women who live those lives too. Yeah. So we just also get it. Like the call of like, your kid is sick. Like you just have to be home with them that day.
Yeah.
Like it sucks. And it sucks to miss work again because you missed something last week. Because last week they had hand, foot, and mouth disease, and this week they have a virus.
Right.
Or like, and you're like, I almost want them to test positive for something, so I can at least say they have
or having ear infections. So you can
yes, I love an ear infection. Get me some antibiotics.
Right.
So we've had a ton of questions though.
Yeah.
How to.
I mean, I think
friggin' survive.
I mean, one element of this, right, is like, I feel like everybody's been so focused on COVID for the last 2.5 years that there's this element of like, oh, I have a cough, I have a fever, like, let me just test myself for COVID. And when you're negative, it's like, all right, I'll show up to work or I'll go. And it's like, no, like, I have always been in the camp of like, there are far worse viruses, especially for kids, flu included, than RSV. COVID and RSV. Like, right. Especially for kids, right? So it's like, just a public service announcement. Like, if you're feeling well, just like, don't show up at work or don't
shit that you're COVID negative. No, but you know what happened is we lived in COVID for, it was all about COVID for 3 years and 3 years.
No, I know.
And we kind of lost a little common sense, right? Like truly right. The occasions of my family or friends or people that I know, myself, even like not feeling good. And you're like, you have all these other symptoms, like your nose is running, your throat is sore, you have a headache, and like you're sick. But then you're like, well, my COVID test was negative. Like everybody wants to hear, but don't worry, I'm COVID negative. Yeah. And it's like, dude, I literally don't give a shit. You're slobbering everywhere. Like, stay home. Yeah. You're sick. Right. There's other things out there besides COVID.
Or I had a fever last night, but I'm feeling better today.
I know.
Or like, my kid just puked last night, but you can still come over today. I'm like,
listen,
I'll take a lot of things over norovirus.
I'm gonna tell you right now, my number one fear is the norovirus. Yeah. Like I'll take the others first because like
a lot I would take.
Also, by the way, everyone, like norovirus spreads like fucking fire. Yeah. It's like if you have someone in your house with the norovirus, you can just like wave a match over gasoline. Like it's gonna go everywhere. Like do not come around.
As you're saying, I was home with Mackenzie who puked and I'm sitting next to you right now.
Well, we're like family, so like I don't count it. I don't count it.
Certain she didn't.
You're sick or I'm sick or your kids are sick or my kids, because we're like so intertwined. It just doesn't fucking matter.
I mean, I'm also certain she didn't have the norovirus. I actually think she had like.
I think she ate too much Halloween candy.
Yeah, or that. I mean, let's be fucking honest.
But okay, let's do some. We have so many questions around this. So, okay, big one are like women. I'm just going for it here.
I know you are, but I know where you're gonna go first, and I don't want to start there. Like I want to start with the logistics, like
fine.
Logistically speaking, and we can talk about it. We can use the example of Camilla being sick. Like logistically speaking, like let's just talk about fevers.
Okay.
Because I think one of the biggest issues around fevers is like parents being afraid to either give their kids medication in general for a fever, and or like not doing the dosing properly. Mm-hmm. And what oftentimes happens is that kids are getting underdosed, right?
All
with
the time.
Ibuprofen and Tylenol. So when we're talking about a fever, like medications that you can give your child are ibuprofen and Tylenol. You cannot give, disclaimer, you cannot give ibuprofen for a child under 6 months old. Your only option is Tylenol, okay? But both of those medications are weight-based medications. Mm-hmm. So like on the box, it's usually like an age range. And and sometimes weight, but like usually an age range of how much you should be giving the child, right? And like on the box, I tend to see that dosing is usually lower than what you would actually give your kid based on their weight. So like ask your pediatrician for a weight-based chart of the proper dosing, because if you're going by their weight and you're using this chart to determine how much to give them, then you're usually giving them the proper dosage, which is going to help bring their fever down. Right.
I mean, I know this. I do this for a living, and I was underdosing Eloise with Motrin.
Yeah.
And then like we had a weight check and I was like, ooh, I am way off.
Yeah.
Like I was giving her half of what she could get.
Yeah. Like if you have to get on a scale, get off of it and then pick your kid up so that you have a better idea of what their weight is, then like do that at home. But I think that's a really like important piece to this is if you are going to give your child medication, then give them the right dose, and don't be afraid to give them, like when my kids are sick, I give them ibuprofen and Tylenol around the clock every 3 hours.
Yeah.
So like I give their Tylenol, 3 hours later, ibuprofen, 3 hours later, Tylenol, 3 hours later, ibuprofen. I don't usually do it at night. I usually give them their last dose before bed.
I'm not waking anyone up.
And then they'll usually sleep through the night. If they woke up in the middle of the night and had a fever, I would give them medication.
I leave it on my nightstand. When I go to bed and one of my kids has had a fever or they're really sick, I leave Tylenol and Motrin and the syringes on my nightstand, sometimes drawn up. Like, so it's ready to go if I need it in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So like that, like, feel like that's an important piece to medication. Like, don't be afraid to give it. Don't be afraid to stay on top of it and give it around the clock, and make sure that you're giving the right dose.
Yeah.
Also, like, I feel like one of my best tips around giving medications like ibuprofen and Tylenol to kids is your kids get to a point, especially if they're sick all the time, where like trying to give them the liquid is a fucking disaster. And you can give your child tablets as long as they can chew, the tablets. Yeah. I mean, don't call them candy. That's like the number one thing to not do for.
You should not do that. But
I mean,
but they'll like them.
I'm sure we've both done it.
Like them because they taste like sweethearts. But yeah.
But so there are different forms of these medication, right? Like you can do children's Tylenol. There's infant Tylenol. There's children's Tylenol. There's chewable children's Tylenol. Like there's liquid suspension, infant ibuprofen. There's liquid suspension, children's ibuprofen. There's chewable ibuprofen.
Yep.
So on all of the dosing, like you can figure out their dose based on the type of medication that you're giving them. So again, also don't be afraid to give your child a tablet if they're 2 years old and don't want to take you can't get them to take the liquid anymore. Also don't be afraid. Like, and this is more like even just medications, like antibiotics or something like that, or like maybe you're on a 10-day course of antibiotics for an ear infection or 7-day course for an ear infection.
I actually like that one because it's just like bubble gum.
But if like you're having a hard time, like I understand that it sucks to have to like pin your child down and give them medication, but like it sucks way more for them to have a fever and or like continuously have an ear infection. So as much as it sucks in that moment, like also don't be afraid to pin them down and give them their meds.
For Eloise or for babies, I take the nipple of the bottle. Like I unscrew the lid to the bottle, the nipple, and I literally just squirt the liquid into the nipple and I put it in her mouth like a pacifier and let her suck it down.
Yeah.
And then I might put a little like formula at the end to like get it all out.
Yeah.
Like clean that nipple out of all that Motrin. I want it all going in.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, I feel like from a medication standpoint, even antibiotics, you can have, if you're really struggling to get your kid to take it, you can ask a pharmacist to change the flavor of it. Like they usually have different flavors.
A lot of people don't know that. You can. Like when I call to fill my prescription, I'll request that they make it bubble gum.
Yeah.
So we got a grape ones that wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bubble gum.
Yeah. So just that's another piece around like the antibiotics.
I'm trying to think what I do with my big kids to get them to take medicine. I've mixed it. So I'm or like toddlers, not big. Our kids are older now, right? Like they'll take tablets. But when you have those like 2 and 3 year olds that might not, like sometimes they'll take it. I know I've mixed it with applesauce. I've mixed it with orange juice in like a little medicine cup. I've done all sorts of concoctions.
No,
you got to get careful though when you mix, because if you put too much juice,
you need them
or
to take
too much volume and they don't finish it, you don't know how much they got.
Yeah.
So if I am going to mix it, I use the medicine, like the tiny little cup,
Yeah.
And it's like a shot.
Yeah.
But can I say something really
fucked up?
No. When we're talking about fevers, I have to tell you all this. I hope my husband never listens to this. We have a thermometer to check temperature. It goes in the ear. He read somewhere online that if you kiss your kids on the forehead with your lips, you can tell from your lips to forehead, you can tell if they're warm. I don't know where the fuck he read this, but I didn't know this. And we've had sicknesses over the last few months, and I noticed that every time I just kept seeing him do this lean in kiss on people's forehead in the middle of the night, during the day. Kind of weird, but also unsure. And then finally I found out that he was checking their temperature. And I wasn't feeling good recently. I was laying in bed and he leaned in to do it to me. And I was like,
don't touch me.
Don't touch me.
I mean, it's
so funny. I'll be like, you think she's warm? And I'm like, oh my God, stop kissing people.
As opposed to just feeling their head with your hand.
Touch them. Babies get real hot on their inner thighs and their belly. So if they really have a high fever and you're changing their diaper, and you can touch their inner thighs and their core is like fire. But the kissing of the forehead.
I don't even use the thermometer most of the time.
I don't either. I can guess. I'm like, it's 104.
I can feel it. You're fucking hot. I give you meds.
You're on fuego.
I'm a nurse. I am not anti-meds. We should probably put that disclaimer out there too. That is not I give my kids meds and they have a fever.
I do feel I have a good guess. When we were labor and delivery nurses and the baby came out, as I was walking to the scale, I'd be like 7 pounds and weigh them. I was 104, 101, 99. I can guess.
Really fucking hot. Yeah.
Fucking hot. Yeah. You're just on fuego.
Okay. So I feel like that's fevers in general. And then when you're thinking, I think the big one too is breathing issues are scary. They're always going to be scary.
I freak when they're having
high fevers are scary too, in fairness. So both of those things I get. Breathing issues, I feel a good general rule of thumb is if you think that your kid is struggling with breathing, that is a reason to see a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
So if it's during office hours, you can call the office. If you feel it's more urgent than that, you can go to urgent care in an emergency room. But with RSV, going around right now, with high fever, sometimes you do get kids who look like they are struggling with breathing, right?
Yep.
Or breathing really fast.
Right.
Pneumonia, COVID, these are all things that are attacking kids respiratory systems and can be really scary. And it's just, if you're ever worried about your kids breathing, you're going to call a healthcare provider about that.
I'll tell parents too, when they're actually just trying to establish if that baby or toddler is working to breathe, you can even just take their onesie or their shirt off and you're really looking. Are they not just breathing quickly and fast, but when you look at their nose, the nares, they're flaring a little bit. And then when you're taking that shirt off, because you're looking at the neck and the rib cage. And kids that are working, they're really what we say, we call it retracting, but it's a tugging, they're pulling, and you can see their sides kind of sucking in, and ooh, that's too much work.
Yeah. So if you see any of that pulling, that tugging, where when they inhale, you can see their rib cage, or sometimes when they inhale and you look at their collarbone, this is when Camilla had pneumonia and I brought her to the pediatrician and I knew I had to go to the emergency room, but I was trying so hard not to go.
Yeah.
And we went in and her nose, she had the nasal flaring and she was pulling at her collarbone. You could see
she needed oxygen.
You could see it pulling. They were I remember the nurse practitioner looked at me. I was like, I know. I just
oh my God,
wanted to see if you could do anything for me.
Hey.
But yeah, so you're going to see that pulling, and sometimes it's in the collarbone, sometimes it's in the ribs, sometimes it's both. With a really young kid, you might see their nose flaring. Those are all signs that your child, it's called work of breathing, that they're working hard to breathe. That's 100% a reason to call your provider or go to an urgent care and emergency room.
Or hop in your own car and drive to the emergency room and get pulled over on the way.
Oh my God.
That's a story for another day, but Eloise had COVID and my car didn't have gas. So I took my husband's giant truck and I was in Maine. So I was like a Target already, Boston plates, giant Ram truck, fucking flying to the emergency room.
You weren't flying. You were going 35 in a school zone. Like, I'm being dead
but
serious
to people
right now.
in Maine, I was flying. Got pulled over. I was like,
in a school zone. Sorry. She's doing 35 in a school zone, not during school hours. It was like 10 o'clock at night.
I was so jammed up. I was like, I don't have time for this right now. And I just am trying to get to
She's like, ma'am, I need to call an ambulance, ma'am. Anyway.
Okay. That's a whole other episode.
We'll talk about that.
But yeah.
Okay. So
drive carefully.
Breathing. Norovirus. I wish that I had something super insightful to tell you here.
I have something.
But like the norovirus fucking blows. Like my tips are like Clorox your entire house over and over and over again. The kid with the norovirus, or if you have it, like this is a scenario where like I stay away from the rest of your family to try and spare them, because
don't share a bowl of chips.
The norovirus sucks. And like I can tell you a story about the norovirus in my house too. I am in the camp of I will not eat or drink anything for 24 hours. Like, I'm cool. I know, like, when I am like puking and shitting, I might faint. That's okay. I will lower myself to the floor. But like I am in the camp of like, I will not eat or drink anything until I know I'm feeling better, versus like trying to eat or drink something to see if I'm better and then puking again. Like, no fucking way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what is your tip?
So honestly, this is not applicable to everyone or every child, but I am going to just go ahead and say it because it happened to me recently. Sometimes it is appropriate for your pediatrician to give your child Zofran if they're puking that much.
Yeah.
An antiemetic. And I feel like this happened recently with Grace. Her fever was so high and she was vomiting. Yeah. So I could not keep Tylenol or Motrin down.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of that I needed her to stop vomiting, like break that cycle so that she could keep the meds down so that her fever could finally go down. And so again, like it's not something that's like
by your healthcare
totally, but if you're in a situation where your kid has been puking so much that like they're not peeing or they're not keeping anything down for an extended period of time, or they can't keep meds down, like call and ask for help, like ask what your options are.
Totally. Yep.
So
no, I agree with you there.
Yeah. Miracle drug. Truly.
Yeah. I mean, you love Zofran, but
I do.
Mostly because of your pregnancy.
They should hire me to work for them.
Spokesperson for Zofran.
Yeah.
We're looking for a new sponsor to the podcast.
Zofran should sponsor the podcast if they're listening. I could sell the shit out of Zofran.
Okay. That's a norovirus. So shifting away from like the logistics around specific illnesses that people are experiencing right now, I think another question that we're getting asked a lot about is like, what is if you are sick as the parent, right?
Yeah.
As mom, dad, partner, whatever, like, what is your involvement when you're ill?
Right.
Right.
Like, I'm pregnant. I'm sick. I have a newborn. I'm sick.
Right.
I'm fine, but my toddler's sick and I have a newborn.
Yeah,
like all the time.
Those scenarios are tough. I mean,
so you have to go to an island and or send your toddler away.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Book a hotel suite. Yeah. Stay away.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, I think one scenario that we're getting asked about a lot right now is like breastfeeding. I'm breastfeeding and have a fever. I'm breastfeeding and have COVID or the flu or norovirus. Like, can I still breastfeed? The short answer is yes, you actually can breastfeed for any of these things. I just said about the norovirus, like maybe keep yourself away. I mean, with breastfeeding the norovirus, like my first question is like, are you actually physically capable of breastfeeding?
Like if you're actually actively vomiting and having diarrhea, I don't think you're going to really like be down to get a latch and feed. Like you actually might have to skip a session and then pump later when you finally can and give the baby bottles. But your actual breast milk is safe. It's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
You're actually making antibodies based on what your body is fighting, and that is passed through the breast milk to the baby.
Same with COVID and flu, creating antibodies that's passing through the breast milk. So yes, you can, like, logistically, yes, you can breastfeed, like from a physicality standpoint. If your body is telling you like you actually need to rest or you need to lie down, like it's okay. Have somebody else take over feeds for you.
Right.
The only thing I'd say about norovirus is with anybody, like if you're interacting with anybody, just make sure you're washing your hands. I mean, any, not even just norovirus, any virus, right?
Right.
But
a lot of parents are sometimes choosing to wear masks around like their newborn or their kid, that's fine. You can totally do that, but it still remains the biggest thing you can do is wash your hands.
Yeah, 100%.
I know people are sick of hearing that, but just like wash your hands.
Same goes for like, if we can talk about the newborn scenario since we're talking about, breastfeeding and babies, but, in the scenario with newborns, like newborn and you have a toddler or an older child at home who's sick.
Right. Like, let's just send them away.
I mean,
go to a hotel.
Send them away because they're a fucking toddler. First of all.
Just kidding. You can't do that. We all live together.
Yeah. Like you do all live together. Sure. Can you try and keep them apart as much as possible? Yeah. But like, make sure that your toddler's washing their hands. If they are interacting with the baby at all in those moments where you can't control it, like give them really specific directions. Like you can touch their feet, you can touch their belly, you can touch the back of their head, but like
kissing, like you can kiss their toes, don't kiss their face.
You can't kiss their face, right?
If you tell them they can't kiss, they're going to want to kiss. Yeah. So you can kiss the toes, not the face.
Right. You can kiss their toes, right?
Yeah.
So just have really clear,
out loud like that.
I know. Just have really clear direction. Make sure they're washing their hands. Right. Divide and conquer if you need to with your spouse in moments like that. So that's, a toddler and a baby at home. Newborn and like visitors during cold and flu season. Like, guys, general rule of thumb. This is like where the common sense comes into play. Like, if anybody is sick, they cannot come to your home. Like, that's just it. Right.
It just, even if they're like, but I'm COVID negative.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Cool. Like,
cool.
Your nose is running. Yeah. You have a headache and a sore throat.
Right. It's a hard no. Right.
And they should know better too, but I know this happens all the time.
And if anybody comes to your house to visit just have anybody who comes into your house wash their hands. But if they're going to come into your house and they're going to hold the baby, they have to wash their hands.
Right. Some of our parents put like a sign up on the door, like shoes off, wash hands. Cause they're just like, I'm done with asking people to do it.
Right.
Or people come in and don't do it. And then they feel weird asking. Right. So it's like, whatever.
I mean, with people who are regularly like seeing your newborn or helping you take care of the baby or whatever, like we really do recommend like flu, COVID, and Tdap vaccines.
Yeah. Like
those are all things and the reason why specifically for a newborn is because if your newborn gets a fever, I was in the scenario with Camilla and the pneumonia, your newborn gets a fever, less than 12 weeks, you're going to the hospital and they're getting it's a big fucking deal. They're getting a massive workup. Yeah. They're getting admitted, they're getting blood drawn, they're getting a catheter, like they're getting urine,
they're getting a spinal tap.
They're getting a spinal tap. Like you guys fucking like take it from me as somebody who this has happened to, like it fucking blows. If you can avoid your newborn getting a fever, like avoid it. It fucking blows.
Right. And you just also, there are going to be cases where you just can't avoid it. Like this is life. You have a family, you have more than one kid. Like we both have 3 kids and we brought newborns home. Like you also can only do so much. Like, so you're walking that back. Right.
So if it happens, you're not blaming yourself because you had somebody come and help you or because you didn't have your toddler wash their hands at one time. Like this shit is going to happen
on your baby.
Right. Oh my God. I have that photo of Mackenzie sneezing on canola. Wonder how she got pneumonia, guys.
That sneeze.
Like literally. Mackenzie had pneumonia. Anyway. Beside the point, but these things are going to happen. It's not your fault. It's nothing to feel guilty about. It fucking sucks when it happens. Don't get me wrong, but you're not blaming yourself for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like generally speaking covering newborn. If your partner is sick, like same rules apply as they do for you, right? So like if you have the same thing that your partner had and you were still breastfeeding your baby and you were still taking care of the baby and you were still taking care of the toddler because you were physically capable of doing it, right? Then your partner can too. If they're physically capable of helping you, even though they might be COVID positive or whatever, then they can still help you. It's not like, this isn't a scenario where, I feel like in the beginning of COVID, right? It was like, my husband and I didn't do this, but like you get COVID and like your husband, and you have a newborn at home, you're separated, but if you have COVID as, the breastfeeding mom, like you're still breastfeeding, like, no, everybody can still help. As long as you're physically capable of helping, everybody can still help.
Totally.
Right.
We had that in our house. My husband asked if he should go stay up at our main house. And I was like, oh, hell no. You're not leaving me here with these 3 kids and going up, like doing me a favor. Like, put a mask on and stick around.
Yeah.
Anyway. So everyone's sick. It's going to be okay.
I mean,
wash your hands.
Yes.
Stop only taking COVID tests and not considering everything else.
I mean, I think the last piece is around like the emotional, mental piece of it of like, when is this going to end? And like, how the fuck do I deal with having sick kids all the time?
I would say like among all these random questions about breastfeeding and toddlers being sick, the biggest one is like, when will this end?
Yeah. Like we're on week 5. I think one of the questions this past week on Moment for Mom was like, we're on week 5 of daycare and my kid has been home more than 50% of the time.
Right.
Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Yeah. And I really think that it is, one element of this is like, it will not be like this forever. Like this winter is going to suck in terms of illnesses. It's, we're back at pre-COVID level. So I think there's an element of like, we were used to illnesses being better.
Yeah, it was like just known when you started school or daycare that people were going to be sick for months.
Right. So we're going back to like pre-COVID levels. There are certain illnesses that are worse right now than they usually are. So like taking that into consideration, you are not the only person going through this, right? So like when you're thinking about, your life at home with your family or like your work life, like this is happening for everybody with kids. This isn't just unique to you, even though it might feel like it sometimes.
Right.
So just like remember that and don't be afraid to just have that conversation with your manager or your boss or whatever around like, if you think this sucks for you, like it sucks for me way more.
Totally.
Right. Like, and that's the truth of it. Right. And like, I am doing my best, but like, there's only so much that I can do. Like, can we come up with a plan to like prioritize things when I have a sick kid at home or whatever? Don't be afraid to have those difficult conversations or like set some clear boundaries around what you're capable of when it comes to work and you have a sick kid at home versus not. Also, like, don't be afraid to ask for help or even like revisit. Maybe you need to revisit the conversation or plan with your partner or family members. Around help when you have a sick kid at home. Like maybe you really did, like there are a few women in my mom support group, the last one that I just ran, that like they actually already had conversations with their partner around like, okay, what are we doing when
who's doing what?
We start daycare? Like when a kid is sick, are we going to switch off or like, how, sort of like, what's the plan here? If you haven't had that conversation, maybe have it and come up with a plan.
Right.
Maybe you've had that conversation. The plan that you came up with, like, isn't working anymore. You need to revisit it. That's fine too. But I really think it's all about just having like non-confrontational, like honest conversations around what you need and like what's working versus not working with work and on the home front, whether that's with a partner or family members or whatever.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you're not alone in this. Everybody's fucking sick.
It's the whole country.
Yeah. Everybody's sick. Everybody's trying to navigate this life again.
And it's really hard.
And
it's really hard. And that's also okay too.
It's hard
it can
for
feel
you.
Hard right now.
It's hard for your kids. Right. It's hard physically when you or your kid is sick. It's hard emotionally when you or your kid is sick. Illness is usually resulting in people not sleeping as well. Like everybody's reserves are low. So again, just shift your expectations around what you're expecting of yourself and your kids when shit like this is going on.
Yeah.
Because your expectations should be like, it's not low. Like the standard expectation here should be the standard bar should be low.
Just set things real low.
Yeah. It's
easy to surpass.
Yeah. Then you can just give yourself a pat on the back and feel really good about what you're doing. All right. That's all we got.
Yeah. We know that you all know a friend who's sick or going through sickness. So share this episode with them.
Yeah.
So they can get some tips and not feel so alone too.
Or hopefully we imparted some new knowledge. Onto you. That feels good.
Tylenol.
Motrin and Tylenol.
Don't call them sweethearts. Okay.
Okay. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.